to Back with your host, Chris Ellison. On Back, we feature a lineup of Christian music, and most of it is Canadian. We love Canada, and we love our Canadian artists. We want to showcase their music on this show. We'll feature reviews, artist interviews, and we'll play some of their songs. So stay tuned, and thanks for joining us on Back to Back.
Back to back, stronger together.
So have you ever been in church and sung the songs over the years, songs such as Refiner's Fire, Come Now is a Time to Worship, Hope of the Nations, and many more, like I have in church, not really knowing where it came from? Well, on the program today, we have Brian Doerksen, and he's going to talk to us about not only his past and where he's come from, but the incredible work that he's doing with artists in Canada to help grow the Canadian Christian music industry and create a sense of mentorship and community among this creative group, and try to provide mentorship in terms of how to engage with the industry out there. And it can be a challenge. And so, Brian, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be with you.
Well, we want to talk about a variety of things. We want to talk a little bit about the past and the present and the future and what you're doing out west. Can you share with us your journey, briefly into music, and how you discovered your passion for Christian music?
For me, music was always one of the two key components of really that spiritual spark in me. It was nature. It was, trees and the natural world, and it was the musical world that sparked it. And I just have this vivid memory of, being in 10th grade. I was 15 years old and going to my first Christian concert, which happened to be...
And what was that?
That was Servant, Petra,
yes,
and the Robert Case Band in Seattle, Washington. But what was crazy about it was my dad, who really was trying to build bridges to me and to my friends. Rock and roll wouldn't have been his musical mother tongue. He grew up singing in quartets. He liked all kinds of music as long as it was good music. But when he thought about expressing faith in music, he didn't think of rock and roll. But anyway, he knew that I was being pulled by some of this music, and so he offered to take me and a whole group of our friends and drive us 2.5 hours south from where we were living and still live in Abbotsford, British Columbia, down to Seattle to this concert. And there was multiple things that went on in that concert, because it was good quality music, it was good quality sound and lighting, and there was a whole community, 1,000 people there. So you realized, it's not just a handful of us. There's other people out there that are being stirred by this kind of music. And I think that was a moment when a seed was planted in my heart. Of course, I didn't think I had no idea if I had what it takes creatively or whatever to create my own music at that point. I was just jamming in my bedroom with a guitar, but I think that event I think that would have been the summer of 1981 would have started the journey for me. And it took me, fast forward then about like another 8-9 years after that point to my first kind of like recorded, published, released song. And and we're kind of marking this year 35 years that I've been doing this kind of like in an almost full-time way. And I almost shake my head when I think about 35 years. Where in the heck did 35 years go? Because you feel the same inside, and then you go to do something maybe that you used to do, and you go, and your body says, oh, but you're not quite the same. You're almost the same, but
the spirit is willing, but the flesh is getting weaker.
Just a bit weaker, not all weak, but just a little bit. Yeah, no, I it's been quite a ride. It's been a good ride.
Petra's back out on the road again after they started 50 years ago.
No.
They are.
Okay, that totally makes sense, actually, when you say that, because when I heard them, when I was 15, they had been doing it for a while already. So yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and then there's the division of pre John Schlitt, I think is the lead singer, versus the original singer, and which camp are you in? I'm with the former, maybe because of my age, and quite frankly, I was surprised they didn't do "God Gave Rock and Roll to You" in concert. That's the biggest song I think they ever did, but they didn't. But it sounded great, and they still sound great. So maybe they'll be coming out your way. They're in Ontario right now, but
okay.
A lot of your songs have a blend of worship and personal reflection. How do you find inspiration for your lyrics and your music?
I mean, maybe one way I'd say is that I just kind of like live life. And all the layers of life, right? I live in the home where I was raised. So I was 4 years old when my parents bought this little farmhouse on 5 acres, which I'm talking to you from now. So this has been my home for over 50 years. So I live, I have a couple of special needs sons who require a lot of support. I do various things, but as I go through all of the journey of life, I keep waiting for those aha moments. I call them, the gift of a seed, of a song seed, where you're just doing whatever. And sometimes you could be reading scripture. You could be going for a walk, and this thought, this aha moment comes, and I go, I want to sing that. That's the seed of a song. But I don't try and precondition, is what I'm going to write next going to be a worship song, or is it going to be a response to issues of the day? Or, I'm probably most known for, songs that are sung in churches and in worship services, but, I've written songs for musicals. I write songs of tribute for people after they've passed to sing at memorial services. I've written a whole bunch of love songs about long love that I'm in the process of recording. Protest songs about what's happening, injustice in the world. I think all of us as songwriters, I think we're all waiting for the seeds of inspiration. And the thing is, Chris, if you and I were given the exact same seed, the interesting thing is we would write two distinctly different songs, but you could maybe recognize the seed is the same. Like maybe it's like a lyrical phrase, or maybe it's a melodic hook. I think what we do with the creative seeds in our lives is a reflection and a demonstration of who we are. The things we love, the things that move us. Some are more, melancholy. Some are more extroverted. Some are more, in all the diversity of emotions and personalities. So I think we take in the seeds of inspiration, and then we find a way to express it. And, songs are a very unique art form too, right? Because the development of song form and structure over the last several hundred years has got us to a point that maybe, you mentioned, Petra's been on the road for 50 years. Probably now the modern song structure of how we express songs has probably been around for a little bit more than 50 years, but not much. But you can really see if you study song structure, and I have as a songwriting instructor, it's quite interesting what happened in the 1800s and the early 1900s to get to this place where then you and I take a seed of inspiration and we go, I want to sing this, and we think about verses and choruses, or we think about an AABA form, or we think about the 12-bar blues, or we think about, you know what I mean? So we have these containers that we've gotten used to communicating to each other with. Mm-hmm. But what's really important is not the container, it's the content, right? It's what's in the container. And, most of us songwriters, we don't invent new containers. What we do is we take existing containers and we find fresh ways to fill them with the content of our songs. Mm-hmm. And of course, without the inspiration, without that spark, mm-hmm. we don't get rolling.
Yeah.
But without our personalities, what gets expressed in the end would all sound the same. So we need experiences to mark what it is we're expressing. Like in a song like Come Now's the Time to Worship, one of my more well-known songs, I have a line in there, come just as you are. And that just as you are was there because I was in a very low, disorienting season of my life after finding out our son had Fragile X syndrome and would require care for the rest of his life. We had tried to launch a musical where I'd written all the songs, and the album had succeeded, Father's House, which is coming up to its 30th anniversary, crazy. Mm-hmm. And but the live stage show that we poured this immense amount of energy in a couple of years and probably over $1 million of investment failed. And so I was in a very disoriented season. So, it's also that thing where we have our personality when the seed of inspiration comes, but we also have what our lived experience is in that season. And that also influences the content of the song.
And so what inspires us to write our music? And it would be interesting. I've always thought it would be interesting to get a number of artists write and record a song that maybe we're aware of, but to see how it is done in a different and unique way. Yeah. I think that would be interesting. I don't know how that would happen, but what inspires you to write, and you put it on paper. And what's interesting is your music they've been around, used widely in churches, not only around Canada, North America, but the world. So how does it feel? You wrote some of these songs because of what you were inspired to write, a message you wanted to send out there. But what's happened is a lot of people have been blessed and become inspired. So what does it feel like for you as an artist to not only do what you do, you're inspired, you write, you say something, but that it's received on such a large scale and that you've impacted people's lives? How does that feel?
Well, it's encouraging, but the thing is, in the day-to-day, I'm not aware of that larger influence at all, because I'm just living my life here in my home and looking after my son when he gets up and he needs care and he needs to be prepared for his day program and he doesn't speak, and so he's trying to communicate without words what he needs, and so in a sense, in the everydayness of my life, I'm not thinking about anything grand. I'm not thinking, probably millions of people, so to speak, have sung these songs over the last 30 years. Because, obviously it's encouraging when you get a note, and a note of encouragement arrives from somewhere on the other side of the planet, from Denmark or Slovakia or these places. I get some of these notes and just saying, hey, thank you for writing Faithful One, because I was in this really rough season and I lost my words and I didn't know what to say, and there was your song and it gave me voice. That's a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle, that my song, written in my bedroom when I was 23 years old, overwhelmed by being a first-time father and thankful for it, and also in kind of trepidation, oh man, I'm going to blow it. I know I'm going to let my daughter down. God, I need you to be faithful one, so unchanging. So is my prayer, right? So the miracle of that finds its way from my bedroom to somebody in the mountains of Slovakia, and then they, years later, write to me and say, thank you for writing this song because I was going through X and Y, and I needed something, and your song was there to say. I think songs become traveling or journeying companions to people. And if we speak for them, I think sometimes as Christian musicians, we think a lot about message and we want to sing to people this message. But I think the best songs don't speak to people, they speak for people. In other words, people go, oh, I wanted to say that, right? I needed, and especially, of course, when you think of worship kind of songs that people, individuals, and congregations sing. So, yeah, you're talking about also like the multiplication of inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we need to encourage as many artists and creative people as we can to create the songs that are uniquely theirs to write and create, because when they do that, it multiplies inspiration, because they take the inspiration that they've been given, they write a song which then in turn inspires somebody else, maybe not as a songwriter, but maybe as a teacher, or maybe as somebody who's just serving the elderly or working with the homeless, or whatever it is they're doing with their life, and the song comes along and helps give them voice. It inspires them to keep going. Really, I think we want to make music that matters, that has meaning to it, that can become a companion for somebody else, an encouraging companion. It's like there's so much content being created in our world, so many, and so much of it's mindless, kind of like entertainment, like it's just meant to amuse for the moment. And I understand the need for humor and laughter, and I love watching an episode of Frasier or something and having a good laugh. That's all great. Yeah. But I admire the gift that comedians have. I go, wow, you've got a gift, like you. But when I look at myself and I think, what am I called to do? I think I'm aiming to write songs that contribute meaning and inspiration, and then multiply that. Yeah. And I think we all do that as artists. And I want to encourage more artists to do that, and more Canadian artists to do that. We as Chris, like when we just live, and we live in our cultural context of Canada, there's some distinctives about being Canadian that are true, and I think none of us grow up in a vacuum. We grow up in a cultural context, and we take in elements from things around us, and us as Canadians, I say we're a bridge culture between America and Europe. We have some European sensibilities and some American sensibilities, and then of course we have the indigenous people that were here before any of the Europeans were, and then there's elements from their life and their journey that speak to us. I mean, it's all those layers put together, but Canadian is something special. And man, I would love to hear more Canadian.
You think that there's less Canadian Christian content out there, say, compared to 20 years ago, 30 years ago? I was in a debate with a fellow of mine in the industry, music industry, a certain corner of, and we were debating about, is anybody still out there doing what they're doing and bringing forth? And he's like, there's nobody out there. They've gone away. They've stopped doing it. And I believe they're out there. Maybe some people have just gone dormant. And I believe that as industry partners, and yourself and what we're doing, and all these different organizations that are looking to do, spread the word. Carolyn Aaron's talked about recently about the arts. Music is art. And there's different genres, but it's developing it. It's bringing it forth to the industry, provided there's an industry and there's places to play and to get your music out. And I think for whatever reason, it's just kind of gone dormant for a while. What are you thinking? Are there less or more people out there?
Well, I think there's always people creating. I think a lot of them are doing it in isolation. And when I think about, the state of the industry, my sense is that in order to get a healthier industry, maybe the first step, or one of the first steps, there's no definitive anything, I guess, but is to actually build community. Like, if you want to get to like industry health, by that means all the various parts that it takes in order to really see music creation thrive. Because it's not just, the songwriter and not just the recording artist. It's everything from studio engineers to publishing to people who help put on tours. Like there's all of these pieces. But if we want to do that, there's a lot of people out there that are creating, but in somewhat isolation. They feel alone. They don't feel super supported, and they don't feel often super valued by leadership in faith contexts, because church leaders are very focused on their singular mission. Maybe it's a church planting mission. Maybe it's grow our local church with all the diversity of what our own city is. But in all of those things, the arts, musical art, visual art, arts of all kinds, is where so much of the lifeblood is in communicating the essence of who we are as human beings made in the image of God, of who we are in the way our emotional highs and lows, and the way we are as relational beings. Art tells that story. And so what we have to do in order to see an increase is, first of all, encourage community, so that artists don't feel so isolated, so that artists feel connected, so that artists feel they're a part of something. And then if we have healthy individuals leading to healthy community, we can eventually have a healthy industry, because those people are generating enough substantive art, art that really speaks, that it becomes more and more vocational, it becomes more and more sustainable. And then all of the other support roles around those artists, contact creatives can grow. We need great PR. There's just so much, right? But at the very core, and me as a songwriter and me as a songwriting instructor, I think songs are the core. Songs, and it starts with the seed of inspiration that we talked about, and then learning how to write great songs that move people, that tell stories, that convey emotions, that speak for people. And so we need, artists that are getting into it, and they need more training, more encouragement, more help. And then out of that will grow a stronger, robust community and industry. And I don't think there's less people. I just simply think that they're more disconnected, and that certain elements of the industry that collapsed, like album sales, like we don't really fully understand the implications of digital piracy until you walk in about a whole bunch of independent musicians' shoes for a while, right? Those musicians that relied on doing smaller concerts, but at those smaller concerts being able to sell, 50 to 100 CDs a night. And because that was the only way people could hear their music. And if they were touched by the music, they wanted to hear it more than just that one time. And to remove that and to say, all song content is just on streamers that is basically for free, virtually free. I don't think we've even, so that's part of what caused an implosion, I think. And there's other factors too,
There are. And as you and I had first met, as I was writing that article for Faith Today, which is being received really well and is creating some conversations. I mean, good conversations, no blaming, it's just here's where we are, but definitely, the community, the different parts of what makes everybody. I mean, there's different parts of the production, as you just described. Well, let's talk about what you're doing these days in terms of collaboration. I think you do a lot of collaboration with a number of artists. I'd love to hear a little bit about who you've been collaborating with, and how does their collaborating with you affect your writing style? And then secondarily, I want to end on talking about the work that you're doing out there, actually doing what you're saying, what you're describing, creating community, creating mentorship and training and opportunities for community. So let's talk about who you're collaborating with and how it affects your writing compared to when you're writing on your own. And then let's talk about, the other, how,
yeah. Okay, well, collaboration is obviously is big, and one of the things I would say, even maybe that people don't think about, is the collaboration between a visual artist and a recording or songwriting artist. I think is incredibly vital in today's age. And so I'm collaborating with my son-in-law, Luc Vandevert, whose artist name is The Arctic, but he's a filmmaker, he's a musician, but as we work together on creating visual art that carries musical art with it, it has a way of impacting people that just audio only doesn't. So I think that's an incredibly important collaboration. I will also say that I feel like I'm collaborating with Roberta Landreth, who's a designer in Winnipeg, and she's won Junos for her album and artwork designs. And I think all of those things, the logos, the visuals, the even in Spotify, Apple Music, the covers, all of those visual pieces matter, and I think we have to collaborate with visual artists, with filmmaking artists. I'm collaborating song-wise, with people like Jaylene Johnson in Winnipeg, who's a very seasoned songwriter and has a role in GMA, Gospel Music Association of Canada. I'm collaborating with Marika Seward, who's a Black Christian pop/pop recording artist. I mean, her background is more pop music, and she had a number of top 40 pop hits 15-ish years ago that, it's fascinating. So when we write together, she's bringing her lived experience, of course, of being a Black woman in Canada. She grew up in England but moved to Alberta as a teenager, and then has since lived out here in the Fraser Valley. Her lived experience of being a racial minority, but being a person of faith and pop music, yet always had an eye on keeping the roots of her faith there and present in all of her work. That's been hugely helpful and encouraging. And as you say, it influences me, because when I write with somebody like that, it helps me take on board things I wouldn't have taken on board if I wasn't writing with her.
How does that work? Do you come up with some ideas? Do you start from scratch? Does she come up with some ideas and you guys kind of work out the bugs, or do you start from 0 point and see where
all of the above. Sometimes I bring a song idea and I say, here's a song I'm started on, and it feels like it could be a good fit for us to write together. Other times we show up with nothing and we just start experimenting on the piano and seeing just the physicality and the reality of being in the same place, intentionally leaning into creating something, see what will spark. She's been a real help in helping finish some of my songs that had a solid draft, but maybe were lacking that last little kind of sparkle. And I've done the same for her. We speaking of collaborating with Marika, I mean, we've co-written a whole script for a Christmas musical movie and written 10 plus songs for it, and those songs not a single soul has heard. We are pitching the script to several film producers, but we recognize in the end because of the things we really are passionate about, like inclusivity of like special needs adults because of my family, and racial minorities and stuff. We may end up having to make the movie ourselves. We don't know. We're in that process right now. But there was amazing because she would write a script scene and serve it up, so to speak. Okay, in this scene, so and so meets this person for the first time, and at the end of the scene, I want a song that does X or Y, and then I would go and write a draft of the song, and then we would finish it together. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can collaborate. I think the thing is that I'm very much a relational collaborator, so I collaborate with people that I have a relationship with, and it's every time I
Yeah.
learn something.
And
Every
it's
time.
interesting because there's different parts to what you're doing. It's not just about writing a
Yeah.
song. It's
Yeah.
about other areas of the arts too, which is exciting for you. It
Yeah,
keeps you
absolutely.
moving and
I think for probably the first 15, 20 years, I was quite happy and content just to create audio art and then songs that we could sing in our church services and things like that. But then as time progressed, I realized, but we're a story people, right?
yeah.
So yes, songs kind of picked in abstract, like hits, right? Oh, there's that hit. I want to hear that hit. Oh, I want to hear that hit. And they're kind of pulled in at random. But ultimately, we're a story people, which of course is one of the most compelling things about Scripture, is that there are letters and there are things in there. But one of the most compelling things about Scripture is it's the story, right? So that got me into more of that, writing songs for musicals, now potentially writing songs for film. We'll see where it goes. I mean, if you ask me, what's your, favorite song you've ever written, I'll say I haven't written it yet.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, I do have favorites, sure. And partly songs that have really spoken to people. And the last song I was working on, just finishing the other day, would be one of my favorites. But in the end, is when you have hope for the creative journey and you come to life in the creative journey, then you go, well, I haven't written it yet. It's still to come.
Yeah. Well, as far as artists are concerned and your involvement in their lives, whether or not it's collaborations on projects, but even on artist development, I understand that there's a lot happening with you and those involved with you in terms of training, connection, community. Tell us what you're doing and how artists can learn more about it and maybe access it themselves so that they don't feel so alone in the middle of a place where they're alone. How do they connect?
Yeah. Well, one of the main ways now I'm doing it, and I did this in collaboration with my son-in-law Luke, who I mentioned before. We've been collaborating, is we have launched a program called Unlocking Your Songs, where we have 3 different courses where it's a free course. There's a mid-level course called Unlocking Your Worship Songs, and then a full master-length class. It's like the equivalent of 3 college courses. Because I developed a whole songwriting program for a college about 10 years ago. So I've done a lot of research about encouraging and helping songwriters learn the craft. And then when they sign up for the master length class, and then they can access some group Zoom support calls that we do where we get together with other people. And we've got students and people involved from around the world in that program, but a lot from Canada, I would say. The majority is still Canadian, though there's several Europeans and Americans involved as well. And then, so beyond unlocking, I just do some mentoring, song consultations. People can book a song consultation with me, where they send in a couple of songs, and then I respond to the songs and show them what's working really well with the songs and in which ways they could potentially improve the song. From time to time, artists get in touch. They reach out to me and they go, hey, can we get together and talk? I've got this idea or whatever. I go, sure, let's set up a time. So And my good friend Marika, who I'm collaborating with, does this a lot. She consults other artists. We do some of that together as well. So, and then my son-in-law, Luke, he hosts here a songwriting circle once a month, where 10 to 15 songwriters, it kind of ebbs and flows. They come and they sit in a circle and they share songs they're working on together, and they encourage each other and they help each other. But part of it isn't just the songs, it's about the fellowship, so to speak, with just other people that are pursuing that. So I just think we need to invest in training, we need to invest in community, and then hopefully health in those things will eventually lead to a healthier, more connected industry in all ways of what that means, which means ultimately, better, more inspiring art for people across the country, songs that will really touch people and serve them in their life.
Yes. So how can people reach out to you? Where can they find you online and read about it and reach out if they want to?
Well, yeah, it's very, very simple. If you're interested in the songcraft in that community, you just go to unlockingyoursongs.com. And if you're just interested in getting in touch with me personally, or even like booking me to do like a live workshop, you just go to briandoerksen.com. Doerksen is spelled DOERKSEN.com. And, I don't have a staff. It's just me, my wife, and, my son-in-law, who helps me with some of the visual stuff. So if you go to my website and you click on contact and you send an email, I'm the guy answering. We're little family business / ministry here in the west coast of Canada.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it's nice hearing things from, we're in southwestern Ontario, but hearing the things that are happening around the country, and I've heard your workshops and the influence and that you're offering to people who are looking for guidance, for community, for mentorship, and it's working really well. So we want to learn more about what you're doing out west, and so we can do some of that here. I really appreciate you spending some time with us on Back to Back today, and thank you so much for the interview.
You're very welcome, Chris. It was a joy to speak with you, and I love the part of country that you're from. We were there not that long ago, doing events in Chatham, Windsor, and St. Catharines, and some of those places. And every time I'm in Ontario, I just go, oh, I love our country. And I love the people in our country. I love being together. So let's hope your efforts and all of our efforts together will lead to an increase in quality Christian art in our country.
I agree. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
You're very welcome, Chris. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Back to Back, and we thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check us out at www.back2backradio.ca. If you know a Canadian Christian artist that you want to hear on this program, let us know. Well, check us out next week right here on Back to Back.
Back to back, strong back to back.